right, so folks, welcome to our virtual meeting today. This is the beginning of a kind of one of our parish outreaches, parishioners helping parishioners and family and friends. And during this time of crisis with COVID, there's a lot of people out there right now who are maybe have questions, especially financial questions, job questions, things of that nature. And so we're so fortunate to have with us today Doug Patrick. He's one of our parishioners, and he's also a gentleman who has worked many years, especially in HR and human resources and career advice. So Doug has volunteered to be with us today, but also to be a part of this new ministry of St. Patrick, where we reach out to people right now who are especially in need of some assistance and some advice. So welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Well, it's great to have you. And as I said, this is part of a ministry to help people who, especially now, might be feeling a little vulnerable, a little bit stressed out because of questions that have come up in their life that they didn't expect to have to answer. And certainly one of those would be like, oh boy, what happens if I need to shift careers, or what happens if I lose my job? What happens if I need to put a resume together? How do I even start? Some of these folks may not have been doing this for a long time. And so before we get started, maybe just a little bit about yourself and your family. You're members of St. Patrick's, but Doug, tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure. So we've been parishioners for about 14 years now, Lynn and I and the family. We have 3 kids. They're all in their 20s. 2 are now living down in Dallas, and our youngest is graduating from DePaul in June. So very excited about that. And, we were sitting, my wife and I were sitting talking about how can we help others who are struggling. And there's a lot of people who are out of work right now. And with my background, she said, maybe, helping some people with some job search skills. So that's where the idea came from. I reached out to Nick, and that's what brought us here today.
Well, yeah, fantastic. So thanks so much. And for you, as a proud father, and you've got your family now, they're out and finishing up school and working, and so even they have probably got stories about some of the changes in their employment environments, and that obviously that just makes it even more acute because we all know people, right, at this stage.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Family and friends who I know who have been impacted. Either their jobs have changed dramatically and they're now working from home, or they're on a reduced schedule, or even either laid off or in job search mode. So yeah, it's affected millions of people.
And so you've got a lot of expertise. Why don't you tell our parishioners watching, kind of where how you developed your skills, who you've worked for, and how you are planning on going about this ministry.
Great. So worked in most of my life for Hyatt Hotels. I grew up in the HR world and traveled around quite a bit, landed in Chicago in their corporate offices. And I eventually led their Americas region in HR. So that was about 45,000 people, over 500 hotels throughout the Americas. It was quite a bit of job. That's how I lost most of my hair. And then about 3 years ago, I branched off and I co-founded a consulting company that helps organizations, leaders, and teams with talent challenges. And there's quite a bit of it out there. So we do executive coaching, we do team development, and then we help mid-sized organizations with their talent strategies.
Fantastic. I'm just listening to just a little bit you shared right there, and also your family and faith background, and what a great opportunity that just kind of presents itself at a moment like this, where somebody with a particular skill set can reach out and be so impactful in somebody's life to help them through what is for them probably one of the biggest questions or uncertainties that have that has come up. So my goodness, I often say this: the Lord works everything to the good, and here he's put you in the perfect spot to be able to help somebody bring some good out of what might be for them some really stressful moments. Huh?
Well, there's a lot of fear, right? As soon as job loss happens, that fear kind of overtakes us. and we get closed in on ourselves. So having somebody else to talk to figure out strategies and tactics to put your best foot forward in the marketplace, because that's really what it's all about, is where I think I could help people. So
Oh,
I could do that.
that's great. So I bet you, so somebody coming to you, or somebody might be listening to this program when it goes on. One of the questions was, where do I even start? How do I even start a job search?
Great question. So the first thing that people typically do when they're out of work is they immediately go to the job boards and they fix their resume. And they just immediately start applying. And one of the things that we begin with together is we'll start putting together a strategy. So what types of industries do you want to go work for? What types of positions are you targeting? How can you best position your marketing plan, which is how you present yourself to employers, in a more targeted and effective way? So it's not just a scattered approach. We tend to target companies, organizations, and industries so that it brings greater success in a shorter amount of time.
Okay, so to get focused and not to go scattershot, that might be one of the mistakes people make. What are the other pitfalls or mistakes that people make when they begin a process like this?
Yeah, I would say they tend to focus on the same job that they had before.
Right.
So you're immediately looking to go into that same role in a different company. And more often than not, that's likely not going to happen, especially in these times. We have to talk through what are some other roles or positions that would be best suited for your strengths and your abilities. So we walk through that with clients that we work with.
Okay. So in other words, there's a process that they have to follow. There's a way to do it correctly, but they got to be open and be willing to maybe put themselves out there in a place or doing something that maybe they've never even thought about doing before.
Possibly, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing you want to make sure they do is they have kind of their pro and con list. So when they're presented with an offer, they're able to match that up to that pro and con list so that they're not just jumping into that first offer. And that's what I see happens often too, is because of that fear of just wanting to get a job and get the benefit package lined up for their family or themselves, they get an offer and they immediately jump and think that's the right thing to do. But I try to teach them to be a little patient and to match it up to the pros and cons of what that job really is important for them.
Yeah, because I would imagine, especially somebody who is going through this process and they do feel that vulnerability and feel like their life has changed in a way that's out of control, that their first instinct is just take the first thing that might come along, and that might not be the best thing for them. So they need to be patient.
That's right. Because what happens is they'll call me 3 months down the road and say, I'm miserable. I made the wrong decision. I hate this place. So we talk a lot about the culture they're going into, the types of people they're going to be working with, so that they are making a really, really well-informed decision.
So besides helping them, let's say maybe get focused, helping them to do, like pros and cons, what do I like, what do I don't like? What are some of the other things that, in your career and in your HR work have helped people do?
So we begin by talking about what is their brand and what's their story. So what are they trying to convey to the marketplace? Not just fill out the resume and go, but what can they bring to an organization that's going to help that organization succeed? And what I find too often, Msgr, is that they're putting together their resume and they're only putting together almost like a job description. Mm-hmm. I do this, I do that. But what employers are looking for is what impact have you made in the roles you've been in? So were you able to drive a particular outcome financially? Were you able to implement a new initiative that drove growth? So they're not just looking for what you've done, but they're looking for what you've accomplished. So I tend to work a lot with clients around that aspect. We then also line up their LinkedIn profile so that it mirrors a little bit to their resume, but a lot of people are looking at your LinkedIn profile, and if it's anemic or if it doesn't really convey the story you're trying to tell to potential recruiters, we've got to get that lined up. And then the last thing I help with is interviewing, which is some people do it really well, and there's others who just kind of stumble through it. And that's your one opportunity to,
Right.
sell yourself.
Absolutely. So in a sense, else is putting our resume together. We're not just saying this is what I do. You're saying this is who I am. Like when I do a homily, what I try to do is I try to speak in a way that I normally speak, but I like to tell a story. I visualize as I'm speaking. I'm describing the movie that I'm watching in my head.
Yeah.
And see, and for me, that's interesting. So if I get bored if I get bored when I'm preaching, I can't even imagine what the people out in the pew are feeling, right? So I'm trying to create an energy, a story, an excitement about what it is I'm trying to say and what I believe in. And
Mhm.
so for somebody who's writing a resume, they have a very short amount of time and short space to make a compelling case of why hiring them is going to be an adventure and fun and powerful and all those things. So that's a skill to be able to help somebody do that.
Yeah, and then the last thing we help them with is networking, because networking is how most senior executives find their next role. It's not through the job boards, it's not through Indeed or other job sites. You've got to know how to network effectively and not do it in an awkward way by just sending your resume out, but you've got to
Yeah.
make really positive connections with people. And there's a rejection that goes with a lot of this. And so helping people understand how to network positively as opposed to, bothering
So
people in a certain way.
there's let's say there's somebody that's looking for a job. They've got their resume. They're working on it. Give me an example of what would be an effective networking experience for them. How would they give me an example of how they would do that?
So let's say I know you through someone else in the parish. I would reach out to you and I would say, Monsignor, I know you know John Smith. I'd like to get your input on my job search. I am looking at these 20 companies. Do you know of anybody in those organizations? And can you also give me some input on my resume? I'd love to get your input on that. So what you're not doing is you're not saying, Monsignor, do you have a job? Right?
Right.
People don't have a job open. But what I'm saying is, do you know somebody? And can you also give me some input on what I have as my marketing materials? So that's a less offensive approach to an individual, right? Individuals are more likely going to help you because they know you're looking for a role, but it's not in this direct way. Like, do you have a job open? Right.
Right.
So it's a slide in the back door in order to have a conversation. And then once that person is engaged, you can say, well, do you know of anybody else who could help me in my search? So it's a networking forward by asking them for further people to connect with. So there is an art and science to it.
I'll bet. And then you mentioned something earlier that I've heard it can be a pitfall for some folks, and that would be their social media. And you mentioned LinkedIn. A lot of professionals are on that, but they're also on Facebook or Instagram, Twitter. And do you have any advice for them as they get ready to go out and do a let's say a career work? How do they manage their social media so that it's effective and not counterproductive for them?
Yeah, great question. I would say that what you're posting in all of your social channels should reflect the type of person and leader you want to be. So we always talk about, let's go through and just scrub anything that might need to come off of there that may not be a really good reflection of you as a leader, a father, a husband, etc. So most often at the senior levels, they're not necessarily posting things like that, but at the junior levels, that's a very interesting conversation I have with young leaders. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what do you in terms of helping your clients, what do people when they're going about this not think about and it's something that maybe isn't even on their radar. Do you have any suggestions for them in that regard?
Yeah, there's a couple things that come to mind. Number one, I help them get over the fact that they will find a job, right? Because again, that fear is, oh my gosh, I'm never going to find work. This is going to be disastrous. But I've never worked with anyone in my entire life who has not landed in another role. The second thing I do is I work with them up here because it is a drain to find a new job, right? It can be very draining because there's a lot of rejection.
Yeah.
There's a lot of technology that goes into job searches now, and many times you don't even hear back from those organizations. So I help my clients stay positive. Just, it's a numbers game is what I tell them. The more you put in the top of the funnel, the more you're going to have filtered down, and the more likely you're going to find a role that matches what you want. So I would say those three things come to mind immediately.
All right. And then, if you are going to be meeting with people or you're going to be talking with them, how would they go about, let's say, getting a hold of you, or how do they reach out to you? How would you like that to happen?
So Nick put out on the Facebook page my contact info, and it's out there, Doug@aritecoachinggroup.com. I'm also going to be offering 4 webinars. So once people start coming in and I have a mass of people to help, we'll start with 4 webinars that are focused on those 4 things: a marketing plan, how to network properly, doing your resume, and then LinkedIn and interviewing tips. So I think if you're in job search, or even if you're just trying to learn how to do a job search better down the road, these 4 things are going to help you tremendously.
Fantastic. And so, in addition to Doug's work with us for the parish, he also wants you to understand that not only is this for parishioners of St. Patrick, but also this is for family of our parishioners, friends. Doug has a lot of expertise, and we want people to take advantage of his gifts and his talents and all the years of experience that he's bringing to this ministry. And so we'll begin with Doug Patrick as we are today, and then as we move along, we're also going to be engaging, let's say, specialists in mortgages, in finances, and banking, real estate, anything that we can do as a parish to help people during this critical time of COVID and the uncertainties that it's bringing to people's lives. We're trying to do as much as we can. And so, Doug, I just can't tell you how exciting this is to, first of all, just be able to sit down and talk with you, but also to know that somebody like you is willing to step up at a critical moment in the lives of people and let them know, first of all, that there's a way to go about managing a career transition, that there's hope, that, as you said, the one thing that you said that I think is going to resonate the most with people is that all these years of working with people, you've always been able to see somebody land in another job. And I think just hearing that has got to bring a lot of peace to people's hearts. You've seen it all.
Yeah, the second most important thing is this is complimentary. So hope, and it's free. I'm not charging. You can't get any better than that. So if I just offer that up, and I hope that people take advantage of it. I have one person already at 4:00 who is signed up, so we're off and running.
Look at that.
How about
already?
That?
Praise God. So Doug, we are just so grateful for your time with us today, but also for your just reaching out to us because you know that there are other people out there right now who might be going through a tough time, and you have the skill set and the desire and the faith and the love for Christ to be able to help them. So again, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It's been a pleasure being with you. God bless.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.